Well, happy 10th anniversary, Loudhouse fans, and greetings, Gran Turismo enjoyers, because this is a very special occasion. This right here is a video that is meant to coincide with the 10th anniversary of the Loudhouse, and it's basically a showcase of all 8 of my Loudhouse-inspired builds. First up is Vanzilla, because of course Vanzilla would go first. It is the main vehicle of the Loud family, if you haven't known already. I mean, come on. Everyone in the Loud House knows that Vanzilla is the Loud family's main method of transportation. I don't want to go over anything that happened in the fandom and all that. It's best not to bring it up here. So yeah. This is based on Vanzilla, and it's the only vehicle that looks close to it. At least for now, unless the Polyphia Digital decides to add in a Dodge van to use as the basis for a Hellcat swap. Well, you may never know. Up next is the other van that is owned by, well, not the Loud family, but the Casagrandes family. It's the Mercado van. And this one uses the Renault Kangoo as the basis, even though the van itself is different in the show. So yeah, this is the Mercado van. And it's going to be the topic for this video because it's going to have an engine swap. And up next is Lori's car that she ended up getting, Eliza. Well, at least it's close to Eliza. It looks different in the show. Pretty much every Loudhouse vehicle, well, every vehicle that appears in the Loudhouse appears different in the show itself. And this one, as you can tell, is a Citroen DS with the Porsche 911 or 911 engine swap. And yeah, it's fully upgraded. Just gotta check. I purchased all the upgrades for it. And it is all good to go. Yeah, I want the engine swap to have it in line with Vanzilla. And up next is the van from the Casagrandes movie. Yeah, it's not an exact replica because, again, it's different in the movie, but it's close enough. It's the Toyota Hiace van. I didn't bother engine swapping this one. And despite the PP ratings, it's actually pretty fast. And yeah. And that leaves us with, I'm gonna add this to favorite, Lance's truck. Yeah, different vehicle in the show, but similar paint scheme. Yeah, it's green and gold. And it has enough firepower to pretty much end any current war that's going on right now. Yeah, I basically did everything I could to mimic the look. And once again, it uses an engine swap, it uses a set from Fossil Fuels. Yeah, it's a truck. It's more of a novelty build than anything else. You're not going to use it for anything, and it has no downforce. Yeah, there's no rear wing. I mean, come on. If you can add downforce to a Toyota Land Cruiser, I don't see why you could do that with Toyota Tundra. Should add in a wing polyphony. And up next is the car that Lori could have got and was planning to get in the show itself, according to Coop Dreams. Lydia. Not an exact replica, because again, it's very different how it would appear in the show, but still the same though. Yeah, this one uses the engine from the Subaru BRZ drift car, more specifically the LS7 V8. And this engine is infamous for its high amounts of turbo lag, but it's still pretty good to basically beat any performance point level you throw at it. And this car could basically run rings around any GR4 racing car, because, well, that race, the World Touring Car 700 at Circuit de la Sarthe, is known to be pretty easy. And last but not least, and I saved the really important one for last. But first, I got another vehicle to show you to you guys. Because this one is a doozy. Yeah, it's Catherine Mulligan's news van, at least a vehicle that's based on it, and it's not an exact replica, but it uses the same paint scheme. And it also uses the V10 engine from the Lexus LFA. Pretty cool, I must say. So yeah. Now we're on to the main event. This dang thing. Bobby Fletcher's race car. And this one is based on the Ford Mustang American Racer. Yeah, like in the show, it looks a lot different, but it's still a stock car nonetheless. Well, that's what I call an engine. Yep, this one is based on Bobby Fletcher's racing car. And it is amazing. Yeah, I originally wanted to show to you the Nissan Silvia, but I think this car would be better suited. Yeah, as you can tell, it is based on a NASCAR racing car. And I had to basically work for this car because this is the only one of the group that requires a DLC pack to get. Yeah. It requires you to get the Power Pack DLC. And I had to work for this car. This car is not easy to get because you have to win bump drafting. And the second race is notoriously hard because you have to go up against El Benelli, who is racing in a Mercedes AMG GT3. Nowadays, you can basically use any car you want from the garage, but back then, it was hard to try to get it. Yeah, it was much faster in straightaways, but it didn't corner as well. Yeah, because El Benelli's car is a GT3 racing car that had much better handling, and this car was much heavier, but it was faster in straights. And I also have a default and super speedway setup for this one. Yeah. It definitely embodies the spirit of Bobby Fletcher's racing car pretty well. And let's go ahead and swap in the Garage RCR Civics engine inside the Mercado van. 'Cause why not? Yeah, recently we've got the Garage RCR Civics engine. And you can put it into the Twingo and the Kangoo van. Alrighty, so we got it ready. Yeah, it's a Facebook notification going off in the background. Okay, we already got all 3 stages of weight reduction pro. Yeah, fully customized computer. I think we're all set. Yeah, it is an amazing vehicle. But how fast are they around the Nürburgring GP circuit? Well, let's find out. some say that she planned on hosting a huge party for the Louds themselves because it is a very special occasion. I mean, it's the 10th anniversary of the Loud House. But all we know is she's called Bobby Fletcher. First up is the Loud family's signature vehicle, Vanzilla. And yeah, it's not anything like the original, but it's the best you could do in Gran Turismo 7, considering that, well, the Volkswagen bus is the closest you're going to get to Vanzilla in the game itself, unless the Polyphony Digital adds to the Dodge van. But anyways, here she goes into the first corner known as the Castrol S. And as you can tell, Vanzilla's brakes are not that good, but what do you expect? It is 1960s technology. And she goes into the Mercedes arena. Yeah, she's doing pretty good in the Mercedes arena, trying not to oversteer it. Up next is the next set of corners known as the RTL and the Ford Curve. Yeah, this van has the excruciating amount of understeer and oversteer at the same time as his rear engine. Up next is the Dunlop Car. And yeah, she just barely tries to avoid going into the gravel trap. Yeah, she goes into the Schumacher S, aka the Michael Schumacher S. Yeah, and up next is the Kumo Curve. Yeah, the brakes are not that good. Yeah, and the bit curve. Yeah. And the Hasenbeck's bogan, or the ITT bogan, yeah, just barely slid there. Yeah, and Vidal. And the Coca-Cola curve is the final corner. Yeah, into the final corner. Yeah, there's a lot of wheel spin here. And across the line! Up next is the Mercado van. And this vehicle has a lot of wheel spin because it's front wheel drive and it uses the Garage RCR Civics K24A. So yeah, it is really powerful, has slightly more horsepower than Vanzilla. Yeah, into the straightaway, and this car is this van is really fast in the straight. Yeah, into the first corner known as the Castrol S. Yeah, she takes it pretty well. And into the Mercedes arena, and sometimes the shifter would jam with this van. Yeah, that's a problem with Gran Turismo 7, is that sometimes the shifter gets jammed, and you have to wait until you shift into the next, or shift down the previous gear. I don't know why it does that, but anyways. Into the RTL of Ford Curve. And yeah, this vehicle has a lot of wheel spin and understeer because front wheel drive. Yeah, up next is, well, up next after the Dunlop Car is the Schumacher S, and she takes the Dunlop Car pretty carefully, like a surgeon. Yeah, she goes into the Schumacher S. Yeah, and up next is the Kumo Curve and the Bit Curve. Yeah, slowly but surely. Yeah, and into the ITT Bogan. Yeah, and into the Vidal Chicane. And into the final corner, notice the Coca-Cola curve. And across the line! Up next is Eliza. Yeah, this is Lori Loud's car that she ended up getting. She couldn't afford the other car, Lydia. I mean, anyone who's seen Coupe Dreams knows that. So yeah, this is a car that understeers, well, that has worse understeer than Vanzilla, but a higher top speed because, well, it's not affected by drag as much. Here we go. She goes into the Castrol S, and the brakes on this car are not that good. Okay, into the Mercedes Arena. And yeah, this car suffers from a lot of understeer because it's front-wheel drive and because it has 1960s technology. Yeah, just barely scrapes by. Okay, here we go. Yeah, goes into the RTL. And look at the understeer while she tries to go into the Ford curve. Yeah, up next is the Dunlop Kerr. And oh man, that's a lot of understeer. Just barely went into the gravel trap here. Yeah, into the Michael Schumacher S. Yeah, just look at that. Up next is the Kumo curve. And the bit curve. Yeah, here we go into the ITT Bogan, and yes, I prefer calling it the ITT Bogan, it's just easier to say. Yeah, into the Vidal Chicane, and to the final corner known as the Coca-Cola curve. Yeah, just look at the understeer there, like, just barely made it to the grass. She's trying her best. And across the line! Up next is the van from the Casagrandes movie. And yeah, its power figure is similar to Vanzilla, but it's much heavier. And yeah, it is easier to control, but it's not as fast as straightaways. Yeah. Here we go into the first corner, known as Castrol S. And with an engine swap, this van is really amazing. Yeah, into the Mercedes Arena she goes. Yeah, she's doing a good job controlling that vehicle. And keep in mind, traction control is usually turned off here to give all of the vehicles a fair chance. Yep. Into the next set of curves known as the RTL and the Ford curve. go into the Dunlop car. And look at that, it's easy to control. Up next is the Michael Schumacher S. Takes that with absolute precision. Don't expect this van to win any records anytime soon. Into the Kumo curve. And the bit curve. Up next is the ITT Bogan. Here we go into the Vidal chicane. And the final corner known as the Coca-Cola curve. And across the line! Up next is Lance's truck, and oh boy, this is one heck of a beast. Yeah, it has a big honkin' V8 and a lot of understeer, but what do you expect? It's a big heavy truck. It makes sense, but hey, it has good acceleration. It's all-wheel drive, or four-wheel drive in this case. Here we go. Into the Castrol S. I still have no idea why they call it the Castrol S. It doesn't look like an S to me. Yeah, and into the Mercedes Arena. Oh man, the understeer is absolutely mind-boggling here. Yeah, up next is the next set of corners known as the RTL and the Ford curve. Yeah, just look at the power of that thing. It's excruciating. I mean, it is amazing. Yeah, and into the Dunlop car. Do have to keep in mind that the brakes aren't that good, and the truck itself lacks downforce. There are no options for downforce. Into the Michael Schumacher S. Into the Kumo curve and the bit curve. And goes by rather quickly. Yeah, and up next is the ITT Bogan. Yeah, it cannot take that corner flat out, but it makes sense because understeer. Yeah, into the Vidal chicane. And into the Coca-Cola curve. Yeah, it goes into the final corner. And across the line! Up next is Laurie's dream car known as Lydia. And yeah, this car has a lot of turbo lag and wheel spin. At least the Gran Turismo 7 version of it, because it uses the engine from the Subaru BRZ drift car. But once it gets there, it's really fast. I didn't use a GT style rear wing for it, because I want the car to look accurate as possible. Yeah, into the Castrol S. And as you can tell, because this car has a lot of power, it has a lot of wheel spin. And Bobby Fletcher is trying her best to try to keep it under control. The car is also in race mode, and I also forgot to mention that it has different setups for the different drive modes. Yeah, I replicated the drive modes and setups, and yeah, just went into the Mercedes Arena.
Up next is the RTL and the Ford Curve. Yeah, just tries to keep it under control. Up next is the Dunlop Car. And then we go into the Michael Schumacher S. Yeah, and here we go into the Kumo curve and the Bit curve. Then we go into the ITT Bogan. Yeah, once it gets its power down, and we go into the Vidal chicane. And the final corner known as the Coca-Cola curve. And across the line! Up next is Kaffir Mulligan's news van. Yeah, again, it's not anything like the original, but it's still pretty close considering that it has the same livery. It's the best I could do. Yeah, here we go. First up is the Castrol S. And keep in mind, Bobby Fletcher has not driven Kaffir Mulligan's news van until now. Yeah, she's only ever seen it, not driven it. Yep, and here she goes into the Mercedes arena. And just be glad that Kaffir Mulligan, of course, let her take her news van out for a spin. Yep, the next set of corners are the RTL and the Ford curve. And here we go into the Dunlop Car. And after that is the Michael Schumacher S. And yeah, this van has pretty good traction because it's all-wheel drive. Yeah, it's the Kumo curve and the Bit curve. Two separate corners. Yeah, Fossil Fueled has made, well, he's done a great job making these setups. Yeah, the ITT Bogan. I'd highly recommend you check out Fossil Fueled setups if you have the chance. Yeah, and into the Vidal chicane. And the final corner known as the Coca-Cola curve. And across the line! And last but certainly not least is Bobby Fletcher's own race car, and this is the car that she is most comfortable with using because it is a car that she's actually used. Well, it's one of the cars that she's most comfortable with using. Yeah, here she goes. Yeah, she knows what she's doing. Yeah, into the Castrol S. And yeah, this car absolutely destroys almost the entire GR3 roster. It is that fast, and yeah, she has no problem going into the Mercedes arena. here we go into the next set of corners known as the RTL and Ford curve. And into the Dunlop Care. And keep in mind, all racing builds are required to use racing softs to keep the playing field fair. And into the Michael Schumacher S. And into the Kumo curve. And the Bit curve. Yeah, she's doing a phenomenal job controlling this car. Yeah, ITT Bogan she goes. Yeah, goes to the ITT Bogan. And into the Vidal chicane. And the final corner, known as the Coca-Cola curve. Which is ironic considering that that's what Bourbon Burger usually serves. Well, not the show's canon, but you get the idea. And across the line! Let's see where that puts the Loudverse vehicles on the leaderboard. And I can already tell that Bobby Fletcher's race car is the fastest. So, let's have a look. Yeah, as you can tell, Bobby Fletcher's car is the fastest with a time of a 1:59.549, just barely a second behind the BAC Mono, aka the Yoshimura GSX-CA. Yeah, and the second fastest is Lass's truck at a 2:08.374, and below that is Kaffir Mulligan's news van at a 2:10.087. And we got Lydia at a 2:13.089, and another record that I forgot to delete. Let's delete that duplicate record, shall we? Yeah. There's no reason why it should be here, but Lydia is the third fastest in terms of the Nürburgring lap time rankings, which makes sense because it is Lori Loud's dream car. And fourth fastest is the Mercado van at a 2:18.420. Yeah, and fifth fastest is Vanzilla at a 2:28.29. Sixth fastest is Eliza at a 2:21.747. And we got the slowest car on the grid, or in the Loudverse, which is the Casagrande's van at a 2:23.650, which means is now the slowest slowest vehicle that we've tested here. But anyways, let's see how fast these cars are at Special Stage Route X once we do the top speed run. So let's go.
Here we go. Let's do our top speed run. And because the list of cars is getting big, I'm actually going to do a ranking for all of the different types of builds themselves. So yeah, I will have separate rankings for different classes of cars like road cars, drift cars, novelty builds, and race cars. But anyways, let's test out the top speed of each and every Loudhouse-inspired car we've got. Okay, going to Special Stage Route X, because that's where we test the top speed of every car. Yeah, I tried Sarf, but it didn't work out as well. Yeah, so we're going to start with Vanzilla. Yeah, Special Stage Remix is still the top track for testing out your cars. And I really wish I had machine tests back in Gran Turismo 7. That's a mode that I most dearly miss. Up next is the Mercado van. The other vehicle that you see frequently in the Loudverse, especially the Casa Grandes. Yeah, I have also posted a poll for the Toyota Hiace, but the Volkswagen bus is the one that got the most votes. Machine tests would make a lot of sense in Gran Turismo 7 builds I've made. Okay, Eliza is up next. Alright, Citroen. Because it is an old car after all. Up next, we have the other Casa Grandes van, the one that actually appeared in the Casa Grandes movie. And I didn't engine swap it because, well, I wanted its performance to be in line with Vanzella. Have a better braking distance than Eliza, though. Up next is Lydia. I can tell already that this is the fastest one of them all. Yeah. news van. Yeah, and it has faster lap times, but what about top speed? its top speed is limited, meaning that horsepower isn't always everything. Oh, and I almost forgot. We got Lance's truck. Its acceleration is phenomenal, but its handling is abysmal. Okay, we go. Moment of truth. It's Bobby Fletcher's race car. Yeah, we're using the default settings. You can't tune this car at all. Well, you can't apply any upgrades to it, at least. So we're gonna have to bump it up a notch. And yes, it can go faster than 210. Yeah, despite what she tells you, this car has a much faster top speed than what she told you. still gonna have a Nürburgring with all of our Loud House inspired cars that we've made. So let's go! Here we go. It's time for the race of the Louds. And here's something to note here. Firstly, I'm going to give all the opponents a head start, and notice how some drivers have British nationalities. Yeah, so the reason for this is because the Loud family is not actually from America. According to the movie's lore itself, they are of Scottish ancestry, meaning that they actually come from Scotland instead of America, despite living in Royal Woods, Michigan. Any fan of the Loud House will basically tell you this, and this is why they have British nationalities instead of American nationalities. Because Scotland is part of Britain. And the Louds come from Scotland. So it does make sense of why they have British nationalities once you understand the movie's lore. Yeah, and I'm always driving the fastest car here. So yeah, Vanzilla made it to the Nürburgring. Yeah, and I know it hasn't been confirmed that Lance Loud is from Scotland, but because he's Lynn Loud Sr.'s brother, it's highly likely that he would have been born from Scottish descent. There's Bobby Santiago. Yeah, this car is a monster. It absolutely destroys almost any GR free racing car you throw at it. It's close, man. Yeah, well, Lydia is faster in the straights. Bobby Fletcher's car has racing slicks. And it will basically catch up to Lydia in no time, and I made the driver Marissa, by the way. Marissa is Lori's friend. Although, now that I think about it, probably would have made more sense to have it be Carol Pingray. She probably wouldn't afford something like that, although you may never know, because she does look like she was born from a wealthy Wall Street family in New York. It's very interesting to find out stories and theories of Loud House characters. Yeah, like where they come from. Not to mention, Lydia also has turbo lag. But this car is naturally aspirate, meaning that it has much better power delivery. You don't need to freaking slam into me like that. Yeah, imagine if Kyle Larson was at the Nürburgring. But the problem here is that Callaway hasn't built any cars for the the NLS GT series. Yeah, Lydia will have no problem catching up to me on the straightaway. But because this car has slicks, it's not an issue. Can basically out-corner Lydia. There we go. That is the race of the Louds. And the replay itself is posted on my GT page if you want to see it. But for now, it is time to sign off. Happy 10th Loudversary, everyone! Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell just in case I haven't already done so. That is, if you like the video. If you don't like it, that's fine. You're not obligated to like or subscribe, but it helps the channel grow. Catch you guys next time, and peace out.